Good afternoon and welcome to Stockbridge Library's online poetry series. Our theme in this year is Sparks in the Dark, and specifically as it relates to how poetry inspires sparks. So I would like to, before I introduce our poet today, I want to thank and introduce John Gillespie. John started this program in 2020 with the idea that we would run it for a few months during the lockdown portion of the pandemic. And here we are in March of 2024 and still going strong with weekly poetry. John, we all owe a debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And today we have joining us Kathyrn Petruccilli. Kathyrn has read with us before in this series, and what's different today is she is joining us from Galway, Ireland, where she has moved. So Kathyrn, thank you for joining us from afar and joining us at an unusual time for you. A few quick words about Kathyrn and her poetry. Her writing, both poetry and prose, has appeared in About Place Journal, the Massachusetts Review, the Los Angeles Review, River Teeth, and Switch, as well as other publications. And Kathyrn holds an MA in teaching English language as I was going to say as a second language, but not necessarily, right, Kathyrn? It could be third,
just
fourth, fifth
just another language, right?
Yeah, so
folks on their
English
third, fourth,
language,
fifth.
right, exactly, which is pretty impressive. So Kathyrn, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will turn the program over to you and to John.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks to the Stockbridge Library continuing to host our program. So, Kathyrn, good to see you back again.
Likewise.
So, what did the theme this year mean, igniting sparks in the dark, mean for you?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I am really appreciative, not only that you've continued the series, but that you all seem to put so much thought into the themes. And I've heard other readers in this particular series talk about the sparks as being the poems themselves, and I would get behind that in part for sure. I think that, if you kind of define the dark in a variety of ways, for me, this could be times of transition, which certainly applies to me right now and where I am and what I'm writing about, and with a big upheaval of place and those kind of confusing liminal spaces. Transitions always last much longer than we think they will or we want them to. So those that can be a dark. There can be the dark of grief, or the literal winter dark. I feel like it's kind of perfect for me to be right on the cusp of winter and spring here, reading in the middle of March. So it kind of feels right. And I think that dark is a necessary dark. And then the sparks, if we don't push ourselves out of the dark too quickly, can be certainly flashes of inspiration, moments of beauty, moments of blessing, and we can kind of redefine what we call beauty or blessing. For example, we don't have to stay with a narrow focus that we've been handed, by sort of mainstream ideas. Yeah, and so I feel like that rest in the dark is necessary, because the first spark isn't necessarily the best idea, right? So that kind of period of dark lets us think and rethink, and I think that's what a poem should do. It should kind of marinate for long enough that different terms arrive, or different ideas, flesh out, so that we're not left with just what we think is clever.
Great, fantastic. So I know, tell tell us a little bit more. I think probably, I think a lot of these people know you, but maybe Kathy Haley doesn't know you as well.
Oh, she came to my reading last time. I remember. Hi, Kathy.
Um, but you do more than, don't you do, there's a bunch of art that you do. There are other things that you do. Poetry is just one of the things that you do.
Oh gosh. Well, I grew up with like flash dance and fame, so I always wanted to be a dancer, but no. No, I'm pretty much a poet. Yeah, I teach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Kathy, make a note. We need some dancing in the next poetry season. We need to have some performance art. Yeah, instead of just the written word, we need some, expression. So,
Oh, I think I know what you might be thinking of, John. Last time I was with you, I shared some artwork by a
yeah,
woman named Madge Evers.
yeah,
We're in collaboration,
yeah,
and yeah, we were going back and forth with some artistic work and poetry. That I think
yeah.
that might be what
Okay,
you're
okay,
referring to. Yeah.
okay. Great. No, fantastic. So, why don't you share some of your work with us?
Okay. I can do that. So I'm going to start with a little poem. I've learned it's good to start with a little poem. Build the demands on the audience slowly. And I think we're probably all familiar with those stories about cross-special contact where like one animal maybe takes care of another animal or befriends another animal of a very different species for whatever reason. So that's what inspired the start of this poem, and it actually has as its title a news headline that floated around for a while, including on nationalgeographic.com. So, why this Florida owl raised a duckling as its own. A gardener disappears small dots into darkness, then waits. All our potential looks the same at this stage. The blessing, the surprise that makes me think tomorrow again, I will rise out of bed and even grin at the day imprinting itself through the blinds, light following me around from room to room, is that after we see what grows, we don't flee, but share our space with whatever blooms. I have, yeah, sort of, yeah, good, starting with the dark there, right? I have another piece that focuses on an animal, and I'm sure you all have poems in the voice of a fish. This is mine, right? This is clearly, yeah. So I was lucky enough to have this poem and a couple of others published in a journal called About Place this past fall. And it was a special issue. I think each of their issues is a special themed issue. And this theme was the non-human world. And the guest editors were Nicole Brown and Erin Coughlin Hollowell. I had to write her name down because I always forget one of them. And they were really interested in looking at plants and animals, not just for a quick springboard into a metaphor so we can talk about humans, but to really focus on the animals. And I think, in sort of the dark of climate crisis, et cetera, when we're all flipping out about what could go extinct, it's important to kind of focus on what those animals have to teach us and what we love in them. And so this is in great part thanks to Nicole Brown, because it came out of a workshop that I did with her. Advice from a fathead minnow. Rest. We wake and sleep by the natural light cycle like you once did. No use for eyelid, our dream life one of simple drift from this glass world to another. How convenient that light behaves like a wave, the ease of taking into dream waters what we know from waking life. Brilliant glow of phosphorescence in red, yellow, green, slip of scene, sweet scrim draped like a tail across the familiar. Our night, a superior peace, grace of story. I can tell what you were thinking. That we watched a dream film in black and white. Sorry, unfinned beast, committed as you are to the spectrum of visible light. Imagine for a moment orgasmic chromatics, stage set in ultraviolet. Every organism is schooled before birth in the stuff of stimuli. Perhaps that's why you're surprised at our capacity for belief, the way it rides a riverbed beyond beauty, how we too can be fooled by illusions of sight, things we thought would feed us but instead left us gutted. Why else would we qualify as counsel unless we knew what it was to be flawed, to make a choice, then withdraw, or become a martyr for a larger cause? Disappointed it's not instinct alone that churns our senses? Listen, you've had a hard day, jostled in the shoal. Rest from who you think you are. Find a cave rock overhang, sleep. Desire relaxed is pleasure. Pelvic fin twitches like a heartbeat, keeps steady. Now, look out to your cloud-marked sky, find a slit like a gill, and breathe.
If only they could talk to us.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, Nicole had us doing like all kinds of research over like a 5-week period. So I mean, yeah, who knew? The fish tank.
Yeah, really nice, really nice.
So this poem is also deals with a headline that's a couple years old now, almost exactly 2 years old. And the headline is, its epigraph actually, "What Mothers Know About War. Polish Women Are Leaving Strollers at Train Stations for Ukrainian Refugees." Ireland has taken in quite a number of Ukrainian refugees. So this particular war, now that we have to choose among them, is quite prominent. Just because of the people that I meet on the street, etc. here. So that headline was from the Washington Post, March 9th, 2022. Another one that kind of plays a bit with rest. Rest your arms. Set wet bottoms in padded seats, above which crinkle-eared elephants dangle. Play a tinny lullaby, lingering are other babies, fat ghost legs clinging around your waist, children of the war before and before. War, how it exits reluctantly the mouth, gluey syllable drawing out the lips, no vibration to command awake the soul, just drag and moan, a sound to signal ache. We must take our inheritance, push them out of the station now. Order, a dubious welcome over all, but at least this conveyance, these wheels, left you by those who don't know you, your sisters. Sometimes it's absence of story that breaks us. You've made it this far. If we've learned anything, it's that what is far is not so far.
Very nice, very nice.
I'm pausing because I know in the past you
we in about 10 minutes or so we have a little audience participation. Okay. So
excellent. All right.
They'll be voting on you. No.
Holding up,
door number,
Olympic style scores. That's excellent.
Kathy, no,
hey, I started out poetry slam. Don't laugh. That's real. That's a real thing.
Yeah, I did a poetry slam in it used to be the old World Trade Center, I think, in 1999.
Wow.
In Poetry Month. A friend and I, it was like a open mic, get up on a soapbox and recite one of your poems. Yeah, it was hilarious. We were dressed up in suits and people probably just felt like we were aliens or something. Why are you getting up on a soapbox and reciting poetry? Yeah, it was quite an event with a good buddy of mine. Yeah. No.
Well, I think I might have mentioned at the beginning, that urge to resist or to want to resist pushing out of the dark too soon. And kind of letting what is going to happen and trusting that. So I don't want to over introduce this poem because it's very small, but I should say that it includes a line by a very well-known poem by Sharon Olds. I hope I didn't read this in a series before. Kathy, you have to tell me if I did. If I did, too bad. It's a short poem. You'll survive. But so the Olds poem is, I go back to May 1957. And in that poem, she imagines her parents meeting in front of their college gates and essentially kind of the tragedies that occur because of that union, frankly. And so her last line, I've borrowed from my last line in this poem. And dream of Eve, ending with a line by Sharon Olds. I've come to warn her. Find her at the end of a twisting path, the animals gathered, archipelago of perfect purple clouds. People for millennia will fear you, the strength of your spine, ease of agency. She turns a ripe cheek my way, placid splendor, the smallest witchy twitch of her brow. I nod. Do what you are going to do, and I will tell about it.
There's a major spark flying out of the dark. That's great.
Thank you. So yeah, I wanted to read this one because I feel like it's maybe sort of speaks to the unsettling nature of those liminal spaces and just the turbulence when you're in those kind of groping in the dark places. Also, it's just very oral, and I thought it would be fun to read aloud. So, love letter to the moon. Like all good disciples, I'm a little afraid of the one who rules me. I don't speak here of blood. We're done with that. Rapacious harpy, you pull me, my body strong in memory, fluids, moods, sleep, a slurry, a slavish hope, a hopeless fury, unholy unrest. Awake again, I curse you. Moon, moon. Wrecked, wept, I pluck you from the dark sky, chalky pill, swallow you, accept the consequence. Matriarch tinged in ancient language, how foolish do I have to be to write to you? I've visited foreign cities only to find your face outside my window, having taken the mountain for your gown. Proud, pout, perfect cloud, I brandish my worship, wish to slip through, escort, escape hatch, mad portal. Let me meet you on the worked dough surface where I am weightless. Pleasure and collapse before a menacing love I can't match. Set to travel via sky and the data lines with your full power, I will surely crash, but no matter. May this page find its way, white flag, to the lit water, that hungry minion, more faithful even than me.
So a couple comments. Kate said, you're right, very funny to read and to listen to. Annie said, ooh, I love the something in rhythm. You continue to dazzle. And Kathy Haley said, the prior poem that, not sure you read it before, but I always love the poem in Sharon Olds. So
thanks.
Nice.
Thanks, folks. Yeah, sometimes the sparks are a fire of challenge. And there was a period of time a while back where I kept getting feedback about poems. Apparently, I was writing a lot of poems in which I was crying. Somebody was crying, there were tears. Imagine the chances, right, in this world. Go figure. And the advice I kept hearing from editors and fellow poets who happened to be men, just going to say, was to dry that stuff up. Like, can we just dry this up? Can we just get rid of this bodily fluids? So, I wrote a bunch of poems. I'm just going to read you one. It's called Petulant Child #1. Today I cried over the micro essay about the dog rescue and the mother with traumatic brain injury. For a moment, a shattering, an invisible rain of brokenness. I feel okay, admitting to you that I cried, because it was only a little. Before things got out of hand, I went to work checking facts about the weekend's mass shootings. The barrage holds the tears at bay. More is less. It's a paradox, and paradox is poetry. One can't count stars now, can they? The tears didn't even reach my cheeks. Well, maybe just one. I'll offer whatever it takes to be trustworthy in your eyes. I'm here to support the cause, to be completely transparent. In college, I worked at the Gap. They made us carry clear backpacks. The store suffered from bad shrinkage. They wanted to avoid any inside jobs. On the late shift, I couldn't stay till close, the bus schedule. So they paid me less. I understood. On the way home, the bus driver called me honey, sweetheart. I told him I wasn't his honey. Ornery back then, so confrontational. Would this be considered confessional poetry? I didn't mean to slip over the line.
I'm intrigued by the comments about the the crying. I don't know. I cry at Hallmark cards, so I feel like crying is like an advanced skill set. Your inner self is communicating with the outside world. So maybe they should
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, poems to cry by while you're having a cup of coffee. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Kathyrn, we're kind of near the top of the hour, just a few minutes. So let's Kathy knows the drill, but we have a couple breaks during the program where you can ask some questions, make some comments. Kathy knows I always say, don't let the poet off easy. This is your time, David. This is your time to,
Me not to cry.
Go ahead. Whoever wants to.
Well, I just wanted to follow on what you were just talking about, the crying and the comments from especially men. It just reminds me of Sharon Olds and, all the things men told her about what she shouldn't be writing about early on, and what we now have permission to write about, what they were calling domestic, issues and, things that women care about, but nobody else does. And it's funny in a place where we feel a little bit more empowered that they still find things. I mean, now they're finding crying, right, to make it more difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to say too, I mean, I have amazing male mentors as well, and but it's a thing. I just just drift away. You're just like, you're like, okay, I've learned where to focus my energy.
Yeah. But you had so many beautiful lines in your poetry, and ones that I feel are inspirational, maybe for my own writing. Rest from who you think you are. Children of the war before and before. Sometimes it's absence of story that breaks us. All of those are I mean, just some of what I wrote down, but I loved those.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that.
Anybody else? Kate, David, Annie, Anna?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, Kathyrn. I'm just thinking of the quote from Sharon Olds, and also the fish poem. The way you were talking about animals made me think of Rilke and his new poems, and that way of looking. I just wondered to what extent other writing literature actually inspires you. or is it something you sort of seek to avoid references to
Oh my
other?
gosh, no. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. I feel like half of writing is reading, right? So I mean, if I'm in a good writing routine, I start by reading, and it's kind of like, the poetry tarot, like what speaks to me today, kind of I mean, here I have a very small portion of my poetry collection. So I miss my poetry library that is still back in Massachusetts. But yeah, I mean, and it changes all the time, who is speaking to me. At the moment, I'm madly in love with Victoria Kennefic, who I've just discovered since coming to Ireland. So she's an Irish poet, for those of you that aren't familiar. And I'm kind of fascinated by her transitions or leaps, and her bravery. I don't know if you're familiar. She has a book called Eat or We Both Starve, which is, kind of all about hunger, and it just in so many different angles. And I feel like, she gets super weird in that book. And I admire that. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to hear more of like favorite poets or.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious about that. I'm thinking of it like in my own poetry, I'm often inspired by things I overhear. Sometimes people speaking, and it's forming like metrically in my head or whatever. But also sometimes by things I read. But I always feel a bit more guilty about including things I've read than things I've just overheard from the street. I just wondered. But that's just maybe my own hang up.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I just have this dilemma actually right now, where I have a poem that I wrote that was inspired by a poem by oh my gosh, another Victoria, I guess, right? She's Victoria Adukwe-Bully, right? Ghanaian, British-born Ghanaian poet. So she has a mirror poem, right? That's so starts and ends with the same lines, kind of meets in the middle. So the lines come in, and then the same or similar lines move out. And my poem is it's a totally different topic. But it's a mirror poem. And I kept thinking, should I put, after Victoria Adukwe-Bully, and I couldn't settle on it. And the poem was just accepted for publication. Now I'm like, crap. So I let the journal know, and I'll see what they think, but I'll let you know what they say. I'm kind of curious myself, because it's not like you read a sonnet, you write a sonnet, and then you're like, oh, this is after, this son. So I don't know if it's just because the form is so particular, that I'm feeling that.
That's interesting. I don't know how often that form would have been used before, or whether you really need to attribute it. I don't know. It sounds intriguing. I might try it myself. I'll say it's after form. You.
what that lady said. Yeah, I mean, if it were in a book, I would certainly put something like in the notes that this owes a debt to this other poem. But I'm still kind of just of two minds about whether it needs that, attributing statement.
Yeah.
You might just look and see if you can find others. And because I feel like if it's the only one, then yes, attribute. But if there are many out there, then I don't think you owe a particular poet.
Makes me think of George Herbert, so from the 17th century poet. His a lot of his poems are really structured. Like there's one about Easter where it's like Easter wings. It's called Easter wings. I'm not sure, or just Easter. But I don't know if he's done exactly that kind of thing before.
Yeah. not sure, but I mean, I definitely feel like, we are continuing a conversation. Like I don't think that we have to, divine things out of thin air. And I think if we think we are, that's kind of delusional, right? Because it came from somewhere, right? We stand on the shoulder. I mean, just what Kathy was talking about with how much groundbreaking, someone like Sharon Olds has done, so that I can, write about all kinds of things and not blink. Yeah, and so it goes for maybe sometimes the words themselves or the forms or the phrases. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So has being in Ireland sparked some different creativity for you? Has it created some new openings for you?
Well, definitely. I mean, I think there's, that kind of where you're sort of running in place for a while, because everything is so topsy-turvy. And I write about place so much, as a rule, that yeah, but I mean, I can read something that I have a couple things
Yeah, sure.
that I
sure.
can
Yeah.
actually, I'm just looking, I don't know if I plan to read them, but I have extra stuff everywhere that I can pull, that, that kind of came.
Yeah, whatever, listen, whatever works.
Well, let me read this poem, which I was going to read maybe later on, but unless do people have questions? Should I?
Yeah, I think it's pretty quiet there.
Okay. Yeah, so this is sort of, this got me here of sorts. It's called Jellyfish off the Coast of Ireland, but it has an alternative title, which is Waiting for Mike's Answer. Ballet of Chance. Drifters who nevertheless own the sea, see through light fixtures trailing their cords plugged into the space of home. Windows on place where they are, pouring through their very core. It's been years since I dragged you across land, traded one ocean for another, then dragged you back. I'm here to ask, will you come with me again? Over water this time? Human, pitiable species, forever trying to locate what's innate. Bulbous-headed creature with brains so big it must be born early and helpless, goblet of knowledge, pushing its know-it-all way out first, only later the gangly limbs. Common off the coast of Ireland, the dangerous lion's mane. Its sting causes pain and swelling. Sea gooseberry, illuminated runners rolling along its body as if directing one towards escape in case of emergency. There's the simple mushroom-topped moon jelly, and one called a compass, markings on its dome that convinced someone it knows the way.
Yeah, I like your titles. Your yeah, Annie Delaney gave you, I think, Magic Shamrock Mushroom, Daylight Savings Time, a heart, I think a recipe for jellyfish. No, you kidding?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I have, okay, I'll read you another Ireland poem. How's that? Since we're in that vein. Not sure about this one. This is all like really new stuff. I just want to thank you so much for being my guinea pigs. I don't know what I'm doing out here. Okay.
Okay, Kathy, we're a success. We don't know what we're doing on this this poetry hour. Yeah, this is true poetry then.
Yeah, so this is the sort of speaks to the idea that I mentioned about kind of reseeing or deciding to reframe how we see things. So this poem is called Wind Warning. On the weather map, craggy coast ringed in thick yellow band. One might think the land wrapped in an aura of light, forecast not warning, but blessing. Winds whip and rush, lick every facet of this stone island, immune to the rants and drives of air. The crows, stubborn as old men, begin their morning routine. Calls hoarse like rain, black cloaks moving across currents. Hold now in your mind this theory of blessing. The birds, angels among us, night-winged guardians, their love rough and brash, unrelenting, voices insistent, if only we spoke their celestial tongue. Meanwhile, earthbound, our one job, to manage the breath. Everything to our small islands. Though sometimes we forget it's there, forget to worship the essential, since it doesn't need our attention to go on, faithful in its tiny storm. Can this be the same element I hear now beating at the trees? What has my breath still to reveal to me? I speak my question aloud from the shelter of my room, a sound part rattle, part coo.
Nice, very nice.
Let's see where we want to go here. Let's go to love. Okay, so we're not that far past Valentine's Day. I thought I could slip this one in. I love pomegranates. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what else has changed for me since I've moved to Ireland. I right now have this gorgeous pomegranate in my kitchen. So in Massachusetts, normally the pomegranates would come from California and the supply would dry up easily by the end of December. So I don't know where these suckers are coming from, but bring it. Love me some Europe. Okay, so this is pomegranate Valentine with the obligatory Persephone reference, but I promise she's just a cameo. Okay. Pomegranate Valentine. It was unreasonable to think we'd find pomegranates this far into winter. So we're in Massachusetts. The season peaking before the end of the year. Yet even now, Mike walks in the door with a globe of fruit, plunks it into the bowl on the table where it sits queenly among the oranges, the eye of Persephone herself. If it were a lipstick color, its name would have to be something like Love is On, or Heartbreaker, or maybe Stir the Pot, Blood Rush Red. When I cut into the soft crust, bracing for a brown section, the flecks of mold I'd have to slice away in disgust, there's nothing inside but crimson pearls, glistening houses of light, the aged skin not dried, supple, creasing and bending like a wise hide offering. My love appears beside me, takes in the sight of our carmine moon with a satisfying grin, kisses me once, then retreats, like that's just where things might begin. I stare at the miracle in my hands. Siren, Spitfire, seal the deal, and think, this is what I want. To thrive beyond what's expected of me. When my season wanes, to still be someone's Valentine, have them open me like that and be awed by what they find.
Really nice.
Thanks.
I like that. Oh, yet another pomegranate lover from Kate Bromley. Great name for the color. Love the poem. Yeah, great.
And yeah, so that's when you're like, I know I'm a poet when I'm in the drugstore taking pictures of the names of lipstick colors on the shelf. Whatever. So this is also a love poem. And you know, I think just like I was talking with David's question about, like using other people's poems as kind of inspiration, sometimes the other people are those sparks that you need or that you're looking for, right? And the connection that you find with them. So this is a little bit of a different kind of format. I want to explain, so it's different because it's trying to pay homage actually to this particular writer, and it's in the style that he sometimes writes in, both the long, crazy descriptive title and this kind of breathless sort of stream of consciousness form. And I use some of his lines and his way of speaking in the poem as well. So I don't know if any of you are familiar. The people that are in my writing class know this name because I say it a lot, even though we don't really do his poems. I haven't done his poems in a while. Hanif Abdurraqib is, and I can put that in the chat if you want me to, but he is one of the brilliant minds of our age, I swear. By the way, he has a new book coming out and you should all pre-order it. He is not just a poet, but he is a music critic and a cultural critic, and just writes amazing prose. So the other thing I want to explain before I jump into the poem is that some of you know that I used to make journals out of album covers. So the old vinyl records, I would take those covers, often the 12 by 12s, but also the 7 by 7s, the little 45. Sorry, I'm talking in inches. Okay. Anyway, the 45s as well, and I would slice them open and create these journals of them with a spiral binding. So that's kind of what this also refers to. So the poem is thinking about the regret I have to live with around not making a Prince journal to give to poet and music critic Hanif Abdurraqib when I saw him read at Smith College. Okay.
Whoa. And that's the end of our show after that title. No, I'm kidding. I love it. I love it. Your
yeah, so along
fantastic.
with my poetry collection. Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah, book of titles. You need a book of titles.
Well, but and this is something that Abdurraqib does, or I won't say did in a previous poetry collection, right? Because we're always reinventing our voice. So I don't know what he's going to do next. But Smith College, some of you might be aware, is Sylvia Plath's alma mater. And I used to live just down the street from it, and they have an amazing poetry series that is free and open to the public. And so I got to see, as the title explains, Abdurraqib read in person, which was really wonderful, and I got to talk to him afterwards. Okay. Had I brought with me to the signing line one of my 7 by 7 journals crafted from a 45 cover of Kiss or When Doves Cry or Raspberry Beret that I bought in bulk overstock, covers that never felt the vinyl or groove of an actual record, but were nonetheless authentic, and that I'd split and dressed on each opposite side with cardstock of suitable colors, holes stamped out with binding machine, a black spiral, hand wound, extra smooth, heavyweight paper cut to fit. Maybe he'd be writing a poem in it right now. Although I don't know if he writes with pen and paper, so it's just as well. And what I mean to say is sometimes the worst thing that can happen is fulfillment of an expressed desire a wild thing and not into being conquered, as few wild things are. And what I really want to say is that when I watched him read Ode to Prince, which I do sometimes on repeat, though he didn't read it that night at Smith, every time I'm transported by his ecstatic delivery. I'm brought to tears, if you must know, as I have to imagine he was upon hearing of Prince's death, which he told a story about at Smith, how he got the news the Friday before Prince actually died, that he might be dead, the plane's emergency landing, and how he had to bury him twice for that, which in fact is nothing compared to the ongoing burials we perform for many of our loved ones. His mother gone when he was 12, and how a few years ago the memory of her voice left him, another funeral, and there'll be more. He tells us this with confidence. And I think about my father, dead before I turned 7, whose voice I could only make up even then. And yes, I trust Hanif when he says there's always a place where we are never dead. And yes, nighttime is everyone's mother. But let's just say I'm not sure what I believe in about how this world turns. In other words, I don't know if I'll ever get to see him again in person. Hanif, I mean. And I feel the ache of missing the chance to place in his hand the journal, a hobby I began a while back when situations felt out of control, upcycling from vintage album sleeves, sometimes 60-year-old cultural references sliced carefully open, the relief of the straight line, making something else from what used to be. And if I could have just delivered such a thing, a physical thing, to say, thank you, to say, maybe this is the right combination of coordinates, to say, I'm really lonely because I'm a human being, but I read your poems, and for a moment, they were my amber, and I was suspended in their beauty, and I want you to have this because I made it, and you like Prince, and you are also human, and so therefore lonely, and I need you to know you moved me, and we're different. I don't really hang out in Ohio, but connected, and I put it in the comments on Insta, but it was the 2445th, so I don't know. You might not have seen it. I'll write it again here. I love you.
Nice. Did anyone else get to talk after you were in line or what?
I was second in line, and that was only because this woman like went.
No,
I knew right where to sit.
put his name in the chat though for us. So
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah.
Want me to do that right now?
yeah.
I will do that right now.
And Annie Delaney said your Irish pomegranates might have come from Spain. And Kate Bromley is breathless. She's trying to cut in line in front of you. No, you're kidding. Get it. Hanif. Okay, I got it. Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's see. I don't know. I guess I could read more stuff if you want me to. This is like such a broad platform. I'm used to like being like, all right, and we're done. How about I just read 2 more poems? Is that okay?
Yeah, listen, this is the unscripted poetry hour.
Just I don't want to, yeah. I feel like I
No, and then we're gonna have another. Well, here, let's do this. Let's have a little 2-minute Q&A or comments before the clock runs out on us. So, anybody else who hasn't talked? Kate, Annie, Anna. You don't have to. Any comments or questions? It's yeah, it's a little more interactive than the traditional poetry reading. We try to shy away from the podium and be in conversation. So yeah.
Well, Kitty is my instructor and my friend, and I just celebrate her beautiful, brilliant brain. So I just am getting washed by the words and the talent, and I don't have much to say other than thank you, and thank you for hosting this.
Yeah. Great. Anybody else? Anna, Bethany? You don't have to. If just
yeah, thank you. I would love to chime in. Hopefully you can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, likewise, I've got to know Kitty personally, which has been an absolute delight. And I can only say the West of Ireland is all the richer for having you here. I'm a Galway woman myself, so Kitty is now an honorary Galway woman, I think, most definitely. I was curious, and this is just wonderful. I am loving every minute of it. Thank you so much for having Kitty read and for delivering the poems so beautifully, Kitty. I just can't wait for you to get a volume published. It would be just phenomenal. I was curious to know, I know, I think I may have asked you about this before, and or we spoke about it, but how much of the time do you use reading your own poetry aloud to yourself to help you in your editing process? Because, and also if I could be cheeky and sneak in a second question, how often do you vary your delivery from one reading to the next, let's say?
Yeah, thank you for that, Anna. I read aloud all the time, constantly. Like that is an integral part of my revision
Okay.
process. Um, and in terms of, yeah, in terms of delivery, that's a really interesting question. I think I'm always working to try to create a visual that looks like what I want it to sound like, that kind of page stage thing, but I don't know how successful I really am. I think I'm very aware when I'm reading of what line breaks I want to make sharp and which I want to glide through. And I think, opportunities like this are really wonderful because, I could talk to the wall all I want, but it's different when I'm preparing to do something like this, and it changes. I made, changes of phrasing, and sometimes word order in pieces that have been sitting in state for a very long time. Just thinking about including them and trying to read them, and not just alone, but as part of a group of pieces, and an arc of some kind. Even if the conversation kind of takes us in different directions and I make different choices, there's still something. There's still some plan that's maybe shadowed behind that. So I don't know that I make changes that are big enough for other people to notice all the time, but I definitely notice kind of different kinds of emphases that I'm choosing depending on how things feel. Like maybe I'm really thinking I want that rhyme to show up, and then other times I'm like, no, that sounds childish. I want to roll that through. So yeah, I think it's something I'm like hyper conscious of, but I have a feeling that the actual output or what people receive might not sound that different to them, to somebody who's just listening. That's my sense.
I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, I get you. Thank you. Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Thanks,
So
John.
we got 7 minutes, so a few more poems and any pomegranate stories, fish on the beach. Kath is looking at me. This is my bad humor. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm listening to your bad humor, John. I promise, but I was also reading the chat. Yeah.
I mean, is there any Sharon Olds poem you'd like to read? Is there anything there? I'm just listen, we've had people read 80% of other people's poems and 2 of their own. So yeah, it's all different. We try to, make the guardrails kind of rubbery so you can
Yeah, I think that's great. And
expand
I
them
think
as you need to. Yeah.
I remember reading some, well, last time I definitely read a bunch of other people's stuff. And, but prior to that, I think because I was invited to, but I think prior to that, I started with someone else's poem, and I think I flipped you out a little bit, but that was when you were, green at this. Now you're like,
Yeah, I was green. Yeah,
wow.
now I'm the color of a pomegranate. No. Anna said you have to read your own stuff. So she closed the door on the.
All right, let me, I have a couple of I'm still mulling over David's question in the chat, or statement in the chat. I'm trying to kind of, my brain can't do all the things at one time. I'll just read a couple of short pieces, and then, if there's a moment left to chat, we can do that. Okay, so yeah, let's stay in Massachusetts for a moment. Of course, I wasn't there for the turn of the fall leaves this past fall, but in in October of 2022. I don't know if you Massachusetts people remember this, but it was outstanding. It was like a banner year for fall color. It was amazing. And I mean, talk about trying to avoid cliche. I'm like, okay, I have to write about these leaves. How on God's earth am I going to write about autumn leaves and not sound like a ding dong? So, okay. But I tried multiple times. And here's one attempt just to kind of go back to kind of how we see things and how that means everything. It's a poem with a bleeding title. In other words, the title serves as the first line of the poem. This is the time of year when the trees turn deity, blessing the humble and the corrupt with color, the car wash, the Dunkin' Donuts anointed by proximity, baptized in rain of copper coinlets, small crimson flags plentiful in their sanctifying, fixated on one end of the rainbow, splash of shiny gold, perfect shade of creamsicle, intent on raising the profane world from its broken knees, the trees' immolation in parking lots, illumination of abandoned gas stations, selfless in the way they show favor to the construction site, offer benediction to office building. Maybe you've seen it happen too, just before the leaving, before the final letting go, how a space grows holy, a brilliance you hadn't known could arrive to an ordinary life. Grocery store driveway, consecrated ground, scattered in maple and ginkgo. And I'll just read this little one, which is really brand new, and talk about transitions. So I've become very aware of how my older son is transitioning into a life away from me, frankly. And so there's lots of poems have surfaced recently of him as a child. So this is called Never Mind the Van. Tire slit open with a pop, split flat like the mind's gasp at horizon's expanse. Grass, a great tick forest fluttering under their chins. The boy, tired of his parents' opinions, picking pebbles at the side of the road, cat caged beside him. The weight, space reaching into the future, its own country. That boy, teeth a skyline of unfinished work, rubble and scaffold, hat brim grimed, hands soft, holding something of a song. And when the man pulled up next to the van to lie in the road, spinning a lug wrench, the boy didn't look up. Sure enough, the moment would be brief. He was going, no matter what. He would get there. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh, great.
Really appreciate it.
This has been very, very nice. A real pleasure. And yeah, thank you for either cocktail time or almost dinner time in Ireland. So for sharing with us. No, great. Kathyrn, fantastic. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And I once again, I think that you should have a book of titles. Obviously, you're going to get with Annie Delaney with the history of pomegranates. So you have a bunch of things that you can expand into. So now, really, really good, fantastic. So, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see everyone next week.
Thanks all.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.